Hi everybody, Msfs here. So welcome back to A Pilot's Life. I'm going to continue on here, and hopefully we've got something a bit special for this episode, because I've got a new tool and it's going to make its debut here in A Pilot's Life series, but will likely be used anywhere that I'm using the 738 from PMDG. Not everything, and I'll explain why, but it will be for certain flights and so forth. Used it for basically 2 flights, have been experimenting a bit with it to just try to understand it a little. I think I'm just barely scratching the surface, but we'll talk about it a little bit as we get into things. So if we go back here, you can see we've still got 5 more flights left on our contract with Canadian North. And once again, I am trying to likely find a different carrier, kind of more toward the center of the globe, frankly, just because I think it'll be a little bit more reasonable to work. But we'll worry about that when we get there. For now, we just need to get ready, and we're going to be going back from Fort McKay back to Edmonton, which should be a good thing because at least we're not going to land at a really tiny runway like we're going to have to do at least one more time again. So we shall see how everything goes. So you can see it's telling me 247 nautical miles, but you can see it's reporting in our Fly Live bar at the top is well, you can't see it yet. It's going to report it as 246. At least that's how it sits now, but perhaps it'll change a little bit based on being placed on the runway. All right, so here we are up in the Canadian North again. All right, so I'm getting myself ready. I'm getting the PMDG equipment to back off because the plan is to use GSX this morning. So there's not much here. All the parking spaces are up here, and they're all for small aircraft. Sitting here with ground power, went ahead and gone with the bluer livery. I think it fits better with the nice blue skies now that the weather is at least warmer. So if I have anything on my plans, it is to get my contract with Canadian North done in the next couple months. Definitely probably before end of August, definitely no further than into September. Hoping to do things a bit quicker, and that's part of why I'm really excited about what I'm going to share with you today. So the plan is we're going to try to use Say Intentions as we have been doing for a while. We're going to try to use GSX. Right now, I am going to stay away from self-loading cargo, which I know I've kind of used on and off. And I'm going to explain why, because I'm worried about conflicts with too many things doing similar things. So we do have FSLTL running. Did not put anything on the ground, so but I do see a bunch of planes flying overhead. That I can't see here, but I see them on my little nav map. So we've got a bunch of smaller planes. Let's see if I can tell. C-280s, D Delta Hotel Echo 8 Delta, so I think that's a de Havilland. We do have a B-78X from KLM that is kind of parallel to us. But they're flying at, where are they at here? Can I tell from how it injected it? Yeah, they're at 38,000 feet, so we're not going to see them, but they're kind of going around over there, and they've still got 2,689 miles going because they are going from Eham, which I think is Amsterdam in Europe, to LAX, so they are en route to Los Angeles. So anyway, we might have some traffic up above, doesn't really matter, that's just more for ambiance, and probably when we get to Edmonton I'd assume things might get a little bit busier. Alright, so let me hop in the cockpit. Center, 134025 is clearance and center. So let's dial our radio in. 134025. We might get some background things going there then. Oops, it's 134025. So that's not going to help. So let's see, 134025. It's probably going to be pretty quiet, I would imagine. But we're powered up. We could have gone cold and dark. It's just not the way I normally start these planes. The big surprise or whatever is I have got a new add-on that I had discovered in this week and did some research. Now, it is not a free add-on, and it does not have a free option. So it's not something like Beyond ATC or even, say, Intentions that started to have some lower-end options. To use this, you would have to pay, and if you buy directly from their store, you get a little bit of a discount. It's about 10% off. They say 20%, but I've not found anything that actually does that. But it is called Flight Simulator First Officer. I'm going to probably have the logo on the thumbnail. I don't even know if they have one. But it basically is a game changer for me, certainly. So some of the big things that happen, obviously, especially with an aircraft like this, is there's a lot of things to flip, a lot of switches to do, a lot of procedures to follow. And one of the things that's always a challenge as a simmer, for example, in Tower Simulator 3, you're running Atlanta, but you are doing it yourself. I mean, yes, you can do multiplayer, but you've got to coordinate with people, never been able to pull that off yet, and so forth. So you have that. Other simulator games like that with air traffic, it's just you're taking on a workload that is more than you. So similar here in Flight Sim, like these planes are not flown by one person. There's someone in that seat, and we're not going to see anyone in that seat. This add-on does not do that. You can still do things like FS2 crew and things like that, which I think do some of that and a little bit of what we're talking about, but I don't think nearly as thoroughly as this add-on does. So you have to purchase it per aircraft, and its base price is basically $20 US per aircraft. So not inexpensive. I get it for folks who might fly a few things. It's not available for that many, but you can go check out their website. I will try to remember to put the link in the description on YouTube so that you can go find their website without having to Google it. But if I forget, it's not that hard to find. Just again, Flight Simulator First Officer, or more casually known as FSFO. And I'm using version 5, which is what you need for the PMD G737, and I decided to go ahead and do the PMD G737 because it's an aircraft I have, kind of the most variations of. I also am, it's just going to be one that I use more often. So if I recall, it is available for the Phoenix A320, and you can get it for the Aerosoft CRJ series. So those are two aircraft that I do have. And then the fly-by-wire series, I don't know that they have the A320, but I think they just released the A380, which was the new fly-by-wire plane. So first FSFO works with that. And I think some of the planes, it might be the 380 is the only one that's on version 6, which is a little bit newer. Don't know what the differences are. Again, I'm still trying to get my understanding of what is here. So I may get it for other aircraft, just depending on what my experience is. But as I've said, I've completed 2 flights with it so far. I had to do a lot of testing, a lot of troubleshooting. I had some weird problems, but I think I understand how things function at this point in a way that will be helpful. So while this is not going to be a tutorial, I'll certainly explain some things if you're going to use it that might help you out and give you some tips and tricks, I suppose, of what I learned in the School of Hard Knocks with FSFO so that you don't have to. All right, so one of the things you do need is FSU IPC7. Most people who use any kind of add-on or are doing any kind of virtual airline or so forth are familiar with this. It basically is an API that allows programs to communicate with Microsoft Flight Simulator and pull data. And the biggest thing with FSFO is you need this LVARs to not be 0, and it takes a few seconds. It's about 5 to 10 seconds I've determined to appear for me, but it depends how many things you have running that would use it. It could take a little longer, but when it first fires up, you're going to see 0 LVARs like you see with the rest of these. And again, I don't understand what all these are. I'm not technical in that way with this. But what I've been told by the developer as I was having some weird problems is these need to be there before you fire up FSFO. Easy for me to say. So we are here and we are ready to go. I'm just making sure I have, I didn't start my flight in a pilot's life. That's typically my problem. So let's see. I'm here, showing server connection connected. Flight pre-flight. So I guess I don't have to start it. So that's good. So Msfs connected, aircraft type. So I think we're okay. The only other thing I want to do is get it into my Navigraph, which is an important thing that I'll lean on once in a while. And we'll get this there. And it's telling me I'm going to be taking off on runway 31, so I'm going to, I guess, then taxi down and then fly up and have to turn around, which is fine. Let's see, what kind of departure do we have? I mean, I suppose I can do tag it. That'll move things a bit, give me a little bit of structure. And let's see on approaches here. So it's telling us we're going to come in on runway 02. So it's running me down here. So I probably want to take ILS Leonid. So we're going to have to play around a little bit with our structure, but it's having us come in the Resax arrival, and then we're going to Leonid transition for ILS 02. So basically passing over Edmonton and then coming back around. And then I have my frame things running. We have say intentions up and going. We have, no, we don't have things dialed in here. Not quite sure why that changed. Might be because I restarted the flight and it does play with these, so it probably put me on Unicom so that I could communicate where I need to. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and we're going to fire up Flight Simulator First Officer version 5. And that is basically the interface. Now you can do some things, and I'm going to leave it on the screen for this flight just so you see how it operates. But this is not embedded in the simulator, so I can move it off to another screen with no problem. They have the settings icon. That opens another window, as you're going to see, that has a lot of information, a lot of tabs. There's a lot going on here. So there's a lot to this program. You need your flight plan and sim brief, which we have, which is common for everything. But this is going to operate as your first officer. Again, you're not going to see him, but you're going to hear him, and he's going to do his things. And right now, I've got this set probably in what would be the more realistic way, where two pilots who know what they're doing, who are experts, again, that's what we're supposed to be in this series. The first officer's just going to do what they need to do. They're not going to sit there and tell me what they're doing. They're going to interact with me when they need to, but their job as the first officer is to do things so that I can focus on flying the aircraft, basically. They're taking care of flipping switches, setting things, doing a bunch of things. So as you can see, we've got pre-flight flow, pre-flight checklist, before start, engine, before taxi, before takeoff, after takeoff, and then it will go on, and you will see how that works. The biggest thing that we've got here, and that was what I was doing as my second flight, is it has GSX integration, and you can hover over these things, and it's got a good amount of explanation. This is in essence the manual for the software is right within it, so you'll hover over things and it will give you information. Again, this is not a tutorial, but these are the settings that I have. Because I'm using GSX, things that are down here don't really matter at this point. The nice thing is if you don't have GSX or you don't have things like self-loading cargo, this will give you a little bit of that.
Center, King Air Golf Tango Juliet Sierra. We can cancel our IFRs then. I'll have your clearance in just a second.
Okay.
You as well, Tango Juliet Sierra.
All right, so that...
Clearance delivery, good afternoon. King Air Golf Tango Juliet Sierra, ready to copy IFR clearance to Calgary International.
All right, so that is say intentions. That is not this tool. There's things you will hear, but not as much. So verbose would allow them to read. So if you want to use this as a learning tool, understand what they're doing, you can do that. This does have a career mode. I may be exploring that in the future. So there is a whole thing where you create a company, it'll generate schedules, you then own your aircraft, you're going to do other things. It does log regardless. So these are the 2 flights that I did. So you can see I went from Charlotte to St. Louis. That was for my virtual United VA that really doesn't make the channel, but I was again getting close to being timed out, so I needed to do that. And then within Two-Tone Murphy's Firefly Air, I'm working on, found basically a achievement set that I could work on, and so I flew from Kuala Lumpur to another location, and I'm flying Firefly Airlines, not Firefly Air, which is what Two-Tone Murphy's group is called, but he didn't realize there was really a Firefly airline in existence out in Malaysia, and so they've got a set of routes, and so it gets me a few extra points. So I did that this morning, and you know, it tracks some information. We'll see what happens when we're going ahead and completing our flight. It'll show you that information as well. You can use voice. I'm not going to, so that's why open mic is on, but it's red. It just makes it a little bit simpler, especially as we're just trying to go through it. And once again, you know, you're really able to go ahead and work through interactivity. So the only other tip and trick I'm going to give you is I have made some changes. You are able to edit the flows. You know, if you go in here and, you know, we're doing the PMDG 737. It took me a little bit to understand aircraft and saved checklist and then phase and action. So it's describing what those fields are. So we're doing the pre-flight flow. This is the pre-flight flow, and you can edit all of this and say who's doing it. So if you want to do things, so let's say you want to turn on or set the auto brakes, you want to go ahead, let's look for something, I don't know, setting the barometer and so forth. You can change this, you know, to be the captain, as you saw, you know, so you click on, whoops, you want to append, no, I do not. So anyway, we're not going to save this. I'm worried if I don't fix it that it's going to be a problem. But you can do things, it'll tell you what these settings are and so forth. So what I've had to do because of GSX and the way it works, because there's a little bit of conflict, so as I talked about, this is partially why I have not yet tried this with self-loading cargo.
We'd like to pick up our IFR clearance to Calgary. Clear to Calgary, direct us 7 minutes, squawk 1766 and ident for Tango Juliet here.
Okay. So you...
Emerson Center, King Air, Golf Tango Juliet Sierra, 2 kilometers south of Albion, 4,000 feet for 5,000. We'd like to pick up our IFR clearance.
Not as crisp radio calls as I'm used to, say, around Boston or Atlanta. People seem to be a little bit less focused up here. Catering and passenger loading are GSX things that happen during pre-flight flow. Where they were set by default was causing me some issues. So I've moved them around, and I have not tried this with the current flow. We're going to see if it works because I had problems with the performance data getting in otherwise. But what you're going to see is this add-on, it manipulates the switches and everything in the plane for you, as if, again, the first officer is in there doing things. So we're going to go ahead and get going now, and the way you do it is, you use this, and this will connect you. So it brings up the user settings, and the important thing in the center is you want to see the plane you have. Again, you have to be licensed, so you'll go ahead, you'll purchase it, you'll get a license code, you'll unlock it here in the license, and then you'll see that if it just says default, you're going to have problems, and it's also not working correctly. This is the other piece. The smart flow means the first officer will act as if he's intelligent, and in some cases will just proceed because he knows it's time to proceed. You can do it, I think, as manual, and then I think there's a third setting, which I think, because manual, I think you click on things and go. I suppose rather than guessing, we'll just look, but we'll go back here to option. So the auto flow policy, okay, manual, lights, and smart. And again, if you hover over this, I think it'll tell you. And so you can see lights. So manual, you're controlling everything with voice or buttons. So if you want to still go ahead and move things, and that doesn't mean it won't move things, but basically it won't do any flows on its own. Where here, if with lights, you can see you're using lights to trigger the flows. So you can see, for example, so the before taxi, after start. When taxi lights are turned on and the parking brake is on, it will do the before taxi, after start type of thing. So these flows here. But I've been using the smart flow. I think that's the one that's more enjoyable. But the thing that's really cool with this add-on is it gives you complete flexibility to do things, and you can change timings, and because you can edit the scripts, like if you've got a different way you want to work through your planes and have your first officer do things, you're free to edit that and change it, or if it's got too much in the standard detail and you want to take things out, like you can strip it down and make it really, really basic and just do what you need. But at this point, we're connected, but it's not doing anything. So you're like, well, this doesn't seem very useful. Well, the reason it's not doing anything is that screen popped up, and the reason it did is start is what you need to do to start. So this will pull things from SimBrief, as you can see, and then this is a good way to verify. So you can turn around, and if you're using the internal career mode, this also is showing you what's going on. So again, no valid METAR, no weather. There's some things that could be impacted by weather, but you can still make changes here if you needed to. But it thinks we're going to 3.1 and 0.2, which is what we have on our flight plan. So that's the other thing I do like about it. It seems pretty nice. Now it is loading less passengers. The last two flights it's always loaded 132. I'm like, oh, is that just a setting? Now again, I am flying the 700 series of the 737 for Canadian North instead of the 800, which is what I was flying before. But that's the nice thing with this add-on. It will work for any of the PMDG 737 series. You don't need to buy a version of FSFO for each different version of aircraft, at least for the PMDG. That may not be true for other things. But at this point, start flight is what I want to do, and now you're going to see how things work. So you can see it's going to count down, and then we're going to start the pre-flight flow, and that will first be with our first officer reporting for duty. So there will be some waiting, and so we're going to go through the full process here. So this flight is going to be gate to gate, start to finish. and you're going to see how things work. So we're probably going to put it down here so it's out of the way, because there's really nothing I interact with over there. But now you can see, enter the flight deck.
Good afternoon, Captain.
All right, and you can see now they're going to go down the list, Jetway. So it's going to try to use GSX. And we have no Jetway here. So that's not going to work. And you can see, so we can wait for a whole minute, or you can hold Control Shift, and you can map keys for certain things. This is the default. So now it's not doing that, and it's going to realize the Jetway wasn't connected. It's going to connect some stairs. And if you have the GSX menu up, you'll see things working. So I'll go ahead and do that, because it's actually interacting with your system. So this is why I got rid of the PMG things, because we now need GSX to do its thing. Now, if GSX messes up, we have an issue. But now you can see, so he did the safety check. He's doing main battery again. If you have verbose on, he's going to tell you all these things. But like at this point, because we're getting things connected, it's worthwhile to just let the timer run. And so this is where it's helpful, and this is where sometimes I needed to edit some things because things just weren't quite working. All right, and so I think once they're done, it may just skip some of the time. So I'm coming back in here because otherwise we won't see things. But you know, they're gonna work with the dome lights, the hydraulic pumps. So we're gonna go ahead here and go up. So again, the pump switches are here. All of our packs are here. Fuel pumps are here. Window heat and probes. So as things go along, but again, this is the pre-flight test. They will do different things if you're powered down completely.
Clearance on request. Stand by.
All right, so speaking of, and this is showing me as the pilot what I am responsible for. So I need to get the clearance.
Center on 135.7. Contacting Edmonton Center on 135.7.
So I'm going to go ahead now and let him go. So now you're going to see hydraulic pumps, so you can see he flipped those. Now he's doing the fire test. Then he's going to go ahead and get ground power. Okay, he's doing fire extinguisher tests. So the fire test is completed. Okay, so now position lights. So now it's requesting catering. Now it's doing the attendant call test. And so you can see completed. Now it's testing the takeoff config. So it's verifying, like, I'm not set for takeoff. So it's moving the throttles. There should be takeoff config warnings. So it's testing that. Now it's doing the cargo fire system test. So these are all the things you can do. On a full checklist, you'd be doing it, but you don't need to know what all those buttons are and what you need to worry about at this point. The Mach overspeed test is coming. That sound. We're going too quick. He's going to do a full lights test. We're going to see everything light up in a little bit. So they're doing test 2 of the Mach test. There go all the lights, so you can see everything's on. It's verifying that that works. That's completed. He's going to turn the IRS selectors on. And now it's waiting to align. Let me call for clearance now while we have a bit. Albion Center, Arctic 1727, calling IFR clearance to Edmonton.
1 second while I grab the paperwork.
Okay, and again, catering is there on the other side of the plane, so they're doing their thing. So this was a problem because catering was down by this part with loading the FMC.
Aerodrome clearance. Clear to Edmonton International. After departure, fly radar vectors resacks, then as filed. Initial climb to 5,000. Departure on 134.025.
So you can see the screen is changing there.
Expect runway 31. Release for departure. Clearance void if not off by 1847 Zulu. Time now 1832.
All right. So what they need, you can see ensure SimBrief data has been loaded. So now it's talking to us there. We're at this point going to say no on the pushback tug. All right, I need to call back. Cleared Edmonton International. After departure, fly radar vectors resacks, then as filed. Initial climb to 5,000. Departure on 134025, squawk 6524. Expect runway 31. Released for departure. Arctic 1727. All right. So, and at this point, we're doing passenger loading and cargo loading. So that should be, yeah, here. So here they are. And this again is GSX. So this was a change that I had made. And so the thing is, like, yes, now the passengers are loading. The catering is happening. So hopefully things should be okay. I may just let the timer run just to make this as clean as possible. Again, we have, I think, 98 people. We're going to start seeing some counts start appearing. Is typically what would happen once people are coming in. I think we'll see it outside the plane, but maybe we need to be inside the plane. It's showing us 4 of 98, so maybe we need to be here. Okay, 10 of 98. So like I said, I'm not sure. Yeah, okay, it looks like it's working. I think we're going to need another bus. I don't think they can fit 98. I think they can get 75 on a bus. But now we're down to about a minute. And then we're going to get a little closer because this is really cool. So other than me as the captain making sure that I have pulled my SimBrief data into our EFB so that it's available, you know, because the first officer has one as well. Again, we're not interacting with that, but okay, so it looks like 80 of 98. Well, maybe everybody is there. Maybe we do have 100 on the bus, but I don't think so. All right, catering is gone. Okay. Now baggage loading is in progress, so there they go. Now that the catering is out of the way, so we're going to have a little bit. Okay, so now it's making sure data's requested. I'm not sure that it's working. Or maybe this is still the first countdown, but we should see.
Alright, I'll start loading the route.
So there we go. He's going to start loading the route. So you can see he's going to go in, and sometimes it says invalid entry and things like that. Okay, so at this point you can see he's waiting for loading operations to complete. So he doesn't appear to be loading the route yet. This might not be doing what we need. So we might be having a bit of a problem here. So let me check on mine. Okay. Yeah, it doesn't look like, so normally they would be doing all of this. So I think we might have had a bit of a problem with something, and again, it could be the sequence of events. So with GSX, it causes a little bit of difficulty. See, because we're waiting for the loading, and then he's going to go do some things, which may be...
Would you mind checking the SIDS and stars?
Alright, so he should have loaded this. At this point, I'm kind of loading everything myself. So unfortunately, this didn't work, but it normally works fine. And it could be because, again, I moved the passengers up. The passengers are normally later. All right. But the issue is, like, I'm not sure if he's where he needs to be. So he's doing the walk around now. And so now what I should be able to do
Clearance delivery, Nerd Air
is I can do
4590
Control
would like to pick
Alt
up our IFR.
and skip the walk around because
One second
he's
while I
just,
grab the
it's
paperwork.
simulating him walking around outside the plane.
Center New Bear 256 request
Now,
IFR clearance.
before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and get
I'll grab
this
that
because I
clearance.
still
Give me
have
just a
to
minute.
dial this in, 6524, but I don't have to do anything other than that. So, 6524. So you'll notice in a bit, as long as everything works, that things will go. So now we're going to say the walk around is done.
Aircraft looks good.
We've got our clearance to Edmonton. We're cleared as filed with radar vectors to
So now you can
resax.
see he's
Initial
typing
climb
things
altitude
in,
5,000 feet.
and he is entering
Departure
things
frequency is
into the computer here for
134.02,
performance.
5, and squawk 6524.
So he's getting this
Expect
off.
runway 31.
All right. And part of it was the Alt button is part of say intentions, so that was an inadvertent issue. But he just entered the cruise wind. And so now he's going to the N1 limit, putting in flaps,
aerodrome clearance.
putting in
Arctic
the CG, which I
1727,
never do.
Fort Mackay, Albion clearance.
And
Cleared
now
to Edmonton
he's
International.
requesting wind
After
data,
takeoff, fly
which you
radar
can see.
vectors to resax.
So
Then
and you can
proceed
see him
as
pushing the
filed.
button.
Initial climb to 5,000 feet. Departure frequency is 134.025 squawk. 6524. Anticipate runway 31. Released for departure. Clearance void if not airborne by 1847 Zulu. Current time is 1832.
Okay, so we're waiting for our bags.
Read that correct?
Sandra, I'll handle comms.
All right, you've got the comms. Let me know if you need anything else.
Alright, so... And now again, yaw damper's completed, I apologize. So, again, he's going through, he just set the emergency lights, set the passenger signs. Now they're doing the window heat, so you can see, you know, and now you'll see things happening with the anti-ice, with the hydraulic pumps, the fans, so the engine bleeds, so it's got Engini bleeds. I've had them whoops, I was trying to capture something, it didn't work, never mind. Okay, so he's turning on the logo lights, all the lights. Now it did the MCP config. It's going to reset fuel flow. Now it's doing the stall warning test, but again, it did, you know, we're flying to 36,000 like it's set our computer here. It did all that. Then it's going to do a full GPS WS test, which is down here. But again, if you don't remember where all these things are, like it will take care, as a flight officer would, to do all these things for you. And, you know, again, the reason you're buying it per aircraft is the flows are different, obviously the buttons are different, so whatever they do in the background to interact with that, which again I believe happens through FSFO IPC7, and you can see they've got 43 seconds. I think once the loading is done, this will not make you wait for the full 530. But there's a lot of tests with this GPWS, and these are things we normally wouldn't do in flight sim. But to add some realism to things, it's really nice.
100, 50, 30, 20.
So we're going to take a peek down here at the transponder, because that's the next thing they're going to do. in 7 seconds.
Caution, terrain.
So watch that. So it's on the heads-up display. Now it's complete, and you see he rotated that to standby. He's now setting his FMC to what he needs. He's going to clear the cautions, so we don't have a caution light
Pre-flight
anymore.
checklist.
And now it's a checklist.
Tested.
And now this simulates
Navigation
the
transfer
two of
display
us
switches.
going back and forth. You can
Normal and
do
auto.
this part by
Window E.
voice if you want.
On. Pressurization mode selector. Auto. Flight instruments. Sit. Parking brake. On. Fuel control switches.
Cutoff. Departure briefing. It will be a left seat takeoff from Charlie Alpha Lima 42. Charlie Yankee Echo Golf. Taxi route is per ATC instructions. We'll be departing on runway 31. Climbing via the departure procedures to an initial altitude of 36,000 feet. Standard reject and emergency procedures apply. Any questions?
No.
Completed.
Pre-flight checklist completed.
So there you go. Now you have this information here, and you start getting some very useful compact information within the interface as well. So when we're flying, you'll see there's some things there that are helpful. But hopefully you're starting to see how powerful this tool really is. So at this point, again, I think, I don't see the countdown. So yes, it looks like they are all set. So now, before start flow, we want to go ahead and now begin this. And we can do that, I think, one way. I don't know that it'll automatically start, but at this point, we've got boarding complete. They don't do fuel because there's problems with GSX and how that works, but we have catering completed, so it just does, in this case, in the PMDG, sets the fuel to what was in SimBrief. But we're going to prepare for pushback, so now it's the normal GSX. And then again, we can go ahead. I'm trying to see, is he, because he had the doors. Oh no, he did not. Alright, so if I go here, so yeah, we need the doors closed so we can do that. But again, I did not do my SIDS and stars because that got messed up. So let me do this, Albia. Now the transition should be tag it. So it's interesting that it's not. So yeah, I wasn't really paying attention to that part here, so shame on me. We're going to do ILS 02. Again, resax with the resax transition, so nothing there. And then we're doing the Leonid transition. We're then going to go ahead and double check. So we're going to go tag it to resax. We're going to do that. And then we're probably going to have, yes, a vector. So let me go down. Alright, so actually from BIPNA, I want to go to Leonid. So we're going to take Leonid, and we're going to get rid of ULOX, and we're going to do that. And that will get everything in appropriately. Yes, because that's afterwards. So we're all set there. So we're all set. Again, they've set this. They've gone ahead. You know, they haven't done the flaps and everything yet. But at this point, now we can do the before start flow. So now you hear the doorways closing. So we're not going to interrupt pushback. Again, we need to get taxi clearance. We already have it, so we're technically void because we're not airborne by 1847. But yeah, so there's a little bit here maybe because of the stairway where I think otherwise it would have been gone. So we're going to go to the FS actions. We're going to do doors, and we're going to close these doors, and then that will cause...
This is to inform you the aircraft doors have been closed. In order to push back on time, all passengers must be seated with your seatbelts fastened. All luggage must be stored in the overhead bin or under the seat in front of you.
This is part of FSFO.
To make their final safety checks before pushback. Thank you and welcome aboard.
Right, so it's waiting for the APU to spool. So if we go up here, like they've done the APU start, we're now waiting for it to spool. And then, yeah, we'll stay up here because you can see we're going to do fuel pumps, hydraulic pumps, packs, the fan, anti-collision lights, ground power, and clear caution alarms. So everything's going to happen here. It set these as well. I almost never set the landing altitude. So now you can see we're all set there. I think we want to go right. So we're waiting for this. So, and it's going to dismiss the ground power in a bit. So now you can see it just flipped the APU. Now it's doing the fuel pumps. We don't have any center, so it doesn't turn those on, but I have had a flight that it did. Now it's working on the packs over here. Then it's going to deal with the fan. Now it's doing the lights. Now the ground power is going to be released. So 11 seconds until GPU disconnect. And so while GPU, you know, this is yelling at us, like it will take care of that here. So if I go over here, you can see ground power.
Before start checklist. Flight deck door.
Closed and locked.
Fuel 11951 pounds.
Checked.
Passenger signs.
On.
And again, it read
MCP.
the fuel.
Speed 130. Heading 311. Altitude 36000.
So
Set.
Takeoff speeds B1 126. BR 127. B2 133.
and that's the performance data.
Checked.
CDU pre-flight.
Completed.
Rudder and aileron trim.
Free and zero.
Anti-collision lights.
On.
Before start checklist completed.
Alright, so again, a little bit of issues, so we're going to go ahead, we're going to return, let's see, ground services, we're going to release ground power. And remove shocks. Normally it does handle that. So it is a bit surprising. So it should be okay. It's going to take it to the right. It's probably telling me to turn my parking brakes off. I'm imagining. Whoops. Alright, so now it's going. And it's actually pulling us forward. So now again, we're going to do the engine start. And so if I go up here,
Starting engine 2.
so there you go. He turns that knob. Even though I pointed to it, I did not. Now it's waiting. And then at a certain point, he's going to supply fuel to the engine. So again, I'm not doing anything. He's touching it. Now we're waiting for it to spool up. So it's got 45 seconds. And again, you can skip things if you want to move quicker. You can also adjust some of these timings. All right. So again, we'll see what this is doing right now. Like, we can go either way, so it doesn't really matter, because we're going to have to taxi down the runway.
Engine 2 started.
So there you go. Engine
Engine
2
2 cut out.
started. Alright, an engine 2 cutout is not bad. That's a good thing. So I've got my parking brake set, and now it'll go ahead.
Starting engine 1.
So there he goes. He turns that. We're waiting for it, as it says, for N2 to reach 20%, which is down here. It gets to about 18, and, you know, in the PMDG it is what it is, but then he'll flip the fuel up. There we go. The start lever, as it says, and then it's spooling up. So at this point, we would do what we normally do, which is we let GSX know that we can confirm good engine start. So it will then be releasing us. So it's lowering us down from the particular tug that we're in. But once again, as the pilot, I'm able to focus on things. And again, if you want to do this, like, you could change this all from first officer to you, but it gives you a checklist then, and it shows you what you need to do. But it also does things that I wouldn't normally do.
All engines stable.
Right, and there you go. And it's going to automatically go into the before taxi flow now. That was a setting I changed. So I think by default it does not do that. You have to click it as well. So now again, you can see switches flipping as we go. Probe heat. It's changing the fans. It's going to change the packs because the engines are now running. It's going to turn off the APU. It's going to change the engine start switches to continuous, which again, normally I'm not doing. It's looking at the engine, turn on the taxi lights, which I always forget. It's setting the flaps. So it's got those, and again, we're just set to flaps 1, and again, it adjusted the transponder and now moved it. So now we're all ready to go.
Clear on the left.
And again, if we have to set the trim, we can do that. That's ours.
On.
Probe heat.
Auto.
Isolation valve.
Auto.
Engine start switches.
Continuous.
Recall.
Checked.
Auto brakes.
Rejected takeoff.
Flight control test.
Right, so here we go.
Full left. Neutral.
So now you can look at my yoke.
Full right. Neutral.
Well, or you can look up there, actually.
Full forward.
I don't know why the yoke isn't actually moving.
Full back.
Checked.
Brake test.
Checked.
Before taxi checklist completed.
Alright, and so then next thing will be before takeoff flow. So now we're going to get going. We're going to get ourselves out of here. So here we go. So, but a lot of help as we go along. Now,
approaching runway 13.
And yes, so this is the...
From the flight deck, we wanted to welcome you on board and thank you for flying with us today.
All FSFO.
We're anticipating an on-time departure, so just sit back, relax, and we'll have you in the air shortly.
And so the RAAS, or Runway Awareness System or something, that's the one that said approaching the runway. So again, and you can determine if you want that operating or you don't. Again, we have clearance. Normally we'd be waiting here for this. So yeah, this will be interesting because like we're going to be on the runway, but we haven't done the before takeoff flow. And you can see we have 98 passengers. The frequencies don't seem to match So right now the departure frequency is...
On runway 13.
So again, we have to go to 3-1, so I have to taxi all the way down and then turn around. And so as we get down there, it usually will sense things, but I'm also on the taxiway. So I'm not quite sure. It'll be interesting, because this is the first time I've done an on-runway taxi at a small airport like this. But hopefully you can start to see just the impressive capabilities of this. And as I said, you're just kind of scratching the surface. You have career things. The career thing will include, like, you can go ahead and have random failures, random other things that happen that then would cause issues. It has a reputation. You're allowed to work for other companies. You know, I don't think it's as elaborate as something like a pilot's life, but you can do things. And again, it will also, there's a choice to have it force you to take off from where you were last, so it will remember where you were, things like that. So there's a lot here for, you know, $20 per plane. But that's the thing, like, if you have 7 or 8 planes that they have, and I think that's probably the total that they have, you know, I mean, you can start approaching a few $100s if you wanted it for every one of your planes. But I think this is one of those add-ons, just like I'm doing, that it's maybe, you know, at most I will probably do it for a couple more. I don't know that I'd ever do it for the 380W, for example. Like, it's nice. Now, the downside certainly will be, but I guess, you know, maybe this is what would happen to a regular pilot. Like, if the first officer's doing all this, which they normally would be, I kind of forget where some of the switches are sometimes. So, I mean, before, I had to get familiar, and if you've watched the channel for any length of time, you know, and as I switch between aircraft, it's like, I don't remember. Like, I know I need to do this thing, but I forget where the switch is, or I forget how to start the engines, or I forget whatever. That's the nice thing. For the ones it does support, the first officer does the job. And so, you know, the question might be, like, you know, for real pilots, does the same thing happen? And yes, if you get your ground speed too high, your first officer will also tell you, be careful. Now, again, right now that's set, I think, to 40. So if I was running self-loading cargo, if I go that fast, I would get penalized. So I probably want to set it lower than that. But we'll see. We're getting close to 3-1 here. So let's see if both the RAAS and the flows...
Prepare for takeoff.
There we go. So they do know we're there.
Approaching runway 31.
So he's flipping all the switches. He's turning the landing lights on, the runway turn-off lights, position lights, going to do whatever he needs to with the packs. Set the traffic button and
Before
the
takeoff
terrain.
checklist. Flaps.
Sit.
Stabilization trim.
Sit.
Transponder.
Whoops.
Sit.
Cabin crew. Cabin crew prepare for takeoff.
Notified.
Before takeoff checklist completed.
Alright, so now we're trying to turn around here. In a very tight little spot, but it is what we've got, so... There you go, so 2 more done, and then you can see the after takeoff. So to me, this is where this system gets super powerful, because there's a lot going on at takeoff, as you well know, if you've ever done this or ever followed. So you'll notice, though, it's different than what I would normally do, and this is where I'm trying to get used to it. It's a little bit more challenging, because normally I'm used to having everything set and all I have to do is hit autopilot, but that's because I'm doing all the work. And so it's difficult.
On runway 31.
But with a first officer doing the job, they will take care of things. So here we go. So now we're going to spool up. And so you'll start hearing things.
Thrust set.
Checked.
Speed alive.
Checked.
So you can see takeoff roll, TO
80
roll.
knots.
Checked.
V1. Rotate.
I'm trying to rotate.
Positive rate.
Gear up.
Bank angle.
See, gear up. He did
Gear
it.
up.
They did it. And now you'll see we got to get to 400 above ground level.
Lateral navigation.
So now they turned on LNAV, which you
LNAV on.
can't see. And at
Arctic 1727, radar contact.
1800,
Report McKay, Albion Aerodrome at 1300 feet. Albion Village
Nav on.
altimeter 29er decimal 85, climb 5000.
climb 5,000.
Acceleration
Arctic
altitude.
1727.
Autopilot.
So there you go.
Command A on.
And we're done. Now it's changing the switches, setting the auto brake, took it back off,
Flaps up.
put the gear down to the middle. It's moving the flaps
After
up.
takeoff checklist. Engine start switches.
Off.
Packs.
On.
Auto brakes.
Off.
Landing gear.
Up and off.
Flaps.
Up.
After takeoff checklist complete.
And so now I don't need to do anything with my first officer until descent, unless obviously something went wrong. So you can see there are, departure change, go around flow, there's an approach brief, things like that. You can reset the flight. I don't know what the in-ops are potentially for, but the arrows, kind of let you move around. And so what you'll start to see after a time, because right now I think it's part of the flight plan that yes, it's got us at 5,000 until Taggett, which is a little ways away. But this is all configured by the first officer.
Delta
And
246, climb
something.
and maintain flight level 320.
So now I'm going to bring up my little nav map. Nobody's
I'll grab that clear. Give
around.
me just a minute. Arctic 1727, climb flight level 230.
Climb flight level 230, Arctic 1727. Alright, so we should be able to do level change now. And so it'll take N1, but it'll stay at 210. So there should be some power that it can apply in theory. I mean, I could wait to tag it, but it's going to start talking to me about how long it's taking if we don't. So we're a little, I feel like we're unstable, but I think we're okay. So let's see if I go to, okay, why won't it? Alright, so I want to do level change, so never mind. Because right now it's having a bit of a problem, but I want to follow it to tag it and then go to resax. So we'll let ourselves go up a bit, and then hopefully once we get to tag it, we can put VNav on and then be in good shape. Because, it still is on autopilot, and it will call out if we do things and touch things, like the flight officer will indicate that they're aware we did something. So let's see, check altimeter target. So do I have, no, 360 is right.
Passing 10,000 feet.
Right. And so now at 10,000 feet, it's gonna reconfigure, as you can see. Just turning all our lights and changing that. So there are some things that aren't flows, and now this is some of the really cool information. So it's going to give you distance. It's going to give you to top of descent, so it knows. And so again, for the descent flow, I think once we're around 20 to 15 nautical miles away, then it will start to do some things. Alright, so at this point, I think I can go ahead and we can go direct resax, which is what they wanted us to do. And now I think if I go VNav, it should still continue to climb. You know, and you've got things here where you can get, I think I have to click on this, so you can request the airport information, request the load sheet, if you're not getting the GSX menu. So again, this, you know, it's available, it's unavailable, so it just, you know, shows that. You've got pushback if you don't have GSX.
Descending to 10,000, altimeter 29.92, Virgin 185.
Flight operations, so kind of the things that you'd be doing. So, you know, flight attendants, there will be a delay. Play the safety message, you must be on the ground. Turn the seatbelt signs on and off. Instructs flight attendants to start food and snack service. Request the fuel truck. Request jetway. So, kind of a GSX. Climb flight level 320, Arctic 1727. You know, and this is where it is a little different, where normally we'd be adjusting this as it says, but the first officer just sets it to there, so there is that difference. I mean, it's not that you can't, you know, take it back over at this point and do things, but just be aware that it will do that. Alright, let me just make sure that nothing weird is happening on the pilot's life thing. So yes, it's tracking. It says we're in to or from cruise. So I think we're okay. You know, obviously we have to land appropriately and all that, but... So... You know, the thing is, like, yes, I would normally then have
Transition altitude.
Self-loading cargo.
Checked.
So you'll notice they changed the barometer to standard. They knew it was transition altitude. I didn't do anything. And they did set the altimeter correctly based on the airport as well. So keep all that in mind. But yes, this is telling us it's airborne. Again, the plane we're in, and that we're in smart mode, so it will sense things. But, so LCL, I'm not sure if that's local. Like when, so it, in theory we have 31 minutes remaining. So, what I'm not seeing again is...
Arctic 1727, climb flight level 360.
Just the planes around. Climb flight level 360, Arctic 1727. So now we're cleared all the way up. So yeah, the benefit of self-loading cargo is, yes, it would then fill in this gap in the middle with drink service and this and that, but you still do have what you're doing with, say, intentions. So once again, you kind of decide what you want to do. Because this gives you a little bit of a report, it's like, you know, does self-loading cargo lose a little bit of its value? Maybe. So I'm just not sure what my ultimate setup will be, but that's basically what I've been doing, is testing this. So, so I suppose we can talk about a few other things since we have time here, because it's going to probably be a few minutes. So when we talked about, the standard operating procedures and stuff, most of this is the way it was. I think I changed the auto checklist after the flow. It was coming to be 0, which meant that the checklist didn't start automatically. I had to initiate it.
United 487, turn right, heading 270.
But I wanted to go ahead and do
United
that.
487.
So you can see the taxi and the landing lights. So if the co-pilot will turn off the taxi lights and the landing,
climb 5,000, departure on 134.025, squawk 6512, expect runway 35.
Runway and landing lights. These are defaults.
Firebag clearance.
But again, you can see manual, or you can do top of climb, top of descent. But most airlines are 10,000 feet, so they're allowing you to do what you need. Again, you can map some things. So I have the keys where left alt would be push to talk, M is mute, and then the comma is bypass. So bypass is when I was hitting Control Alt. That's a keyboard shortcut to do that. And that's some of the challenges I've had with things working. And you can see you have pilot, crew, RAS. You can set the region. You can set languages. So they have several versions here if you want. I've never tried anything other than one. And you can set the pilot and the crew volume, so forth. But as you see, you do need to restart for pretty much anything to take effect. But see, this is where we have gear extensions. So at 2,000 feet above ground level, they're going to drop the gear. But landing lights, engage VNAV, engage LNAV. So these are the defaults, but that's where it was. Like at 400, the pilot called that out. At 800, it did VNAV. And finally at 1800, it did autopilot. I may adjust that because it does seem a long time to hand fly, at least with what I'm used to doing. And then again, auto throttle disconnect, autopilot disconnect. It won't do flaps. It won't adjust flaps any earlier here, so 0 prevents it from extending.
Arctic 1727, expect the RESAX 1 arrival. Anticipate descent in about 10 minutes. If you'd like to descend now, just say the word.
And then, if you want them to, let's just see, if you want your first officer to manage flaps during takeoff, but not during approach landing, set this value to 0. And then again, that's the ground speed warning. Okay, so I guess it's actually at 30. This is where you can determine. So right now, like I have cabin messages off, where normally, this is what they do. They do stow items, electronic devices, dim the lights, welcome to our destination. I don't know if I turn them on now. I don't know that they'll work, but we'll do that because I think unless I'm using self-loading cargo, the cabin messages make sense. The pilot messages are a little bit different. Top of climb, top of descent. And like during taxi, he obviously gave the welcome aboard. So once again, self-loading cargo would do all of that. Expect RESAX 1 arrival. Arctic 1727. I'm so used to doing Walker 4021. and again, you've got some things for operations. This is where miscellaneous, so again, how much delay are there for things?
Direct to airport descending to 6,000, Delta 256.
And so this is one I adjusted where it's half a second by default. I changed this to go ahead and make it 1 second to take a little bit longer. And so again, you can get help for any of those things in the runway awareness and alert system, which is RAS. This is some of the things that you'll have there. So yeah, this probably should also be 30 to go ahead and match the ground speed warning. And then the GUI, does it auto open and close the checklist? Start screen, post-flight screen is the app on top, things like that. So a lot of things there, but down to 97, 96 miles an hour. So go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and try to find this web page. We can talk about that while we're doing that here. Alright, so while we're flying, we'll have this up for us so we'll know what's going on. But this is the page. So Flight Sim First Officer is the web page you want to go to. Kind of explains what it is, and as I said, A380. Even though this says 20%, right now they just offer 10. And they talk about what you need. So again, from SimMarket, you don't get any discount, but if you buy direct from them, you do.
From the flight deck, we've reached our cruising altitude. We hope you enjoyed today's flight. We'll certainly do our best up here to make it as enjoyable as possible. When the seatbelt sign is off, you're free to get up and move about the cabin. However, when seated, please keep your seatbelt fastened as turbulence can occur at any time. Thanks again and welcome aboard.
Okay. So you can see we got 86 nautical miles. I didn't need to close it to show you that, but we did. But anyway, if we go back here, so if you go to products, this is where it'll show you what is available. So you can see they've got a lot of in progress and planned for version 6. So they're doing the A350 for mini builds, the B737 MAX, which is I think the base game Asobo, and then some PMDGs. But these are kind of the active ones that they have. So you can see the Phoenix. They do have both fly-by-wires, the Aerosoft CRJ, Asobo ATR, if you want to use it for that. And again, the one after is if you buy direct from them versus if you buy in a marketplace. And then you can see they used to support Prepare 3D and Original Flight Simulator, but they no longer do that.
Maintain flight level 350. Climbing to flight level 350, American 225.
Yeah, so I'm not sure.
Lufthansa 157.
Looks like the Asobo and Salty B747 is free. That's interesting. But these are
37,000 feet, Lufthansa 157.
But these are the planes you can use it for. So that's it, and then you just go here, and so yeah, so next is a little bit different, and then if you need the versions, this is where you get it, but that's it. So that should give you everything you need to be dangerous if you're interested in this add-on. But yeah, right now my intent is to continue to try to use this. Again, will I leave this on the screen and stuff? Probably not, but it'll be out there on the side and operating, and you'll obviously hear the first officer, and I'll probably be tweaking things here and there. But anytime I fly the 737, I have very little reason not to use this. Now, this was a little bit less impressive than when I ran it the other 2 times, because like I said, for the flight plan, it gets it all in, it loads it, so it basically does the waiting for the upload, then it does the waiting for, once it's uploaded and linking to get it out there. And as you said, it does say you've got to check the SIDS and stars. Like, it can't enter those, partially because they're not in your SimBrief plan. So it doesn't really have a way to get them, I think, is the issue. But so you do have to interact with it there. And then, the performance stuff, it entered most of it. Or actually, I think it got all of it. But, so some of it is just changing the sequence and playing with things like that, and it might flow a little bit smoother. So we'll have to see how things go and what we want to change. But what was happening before is, like, right after catering, it was loading the FMC, and it failed almost all the time when I did GSX. I mean, the other option is I just don't use GSX. I mean, GSX is okay, but there's been a growing discontent with GSX in the community. I think there's several kind of negative videos from pretty big people that are like, yeah, I think I'm done with it. The little bit it does is great, but the GSX people, the support people, are totally unhelpful. There were several videos put out of how they're, pretty rude and pretty direct, and they're like, I have this problem, and they're like, well, we don't have this problem. It becomes the typical IT solution of, well, I don't have a problem, so I don't understand why you have a problem. That's not support. That's just pointless. And so it is nice, while, yes, visually it's not doing anything. When you're in the cockpit, it's not like you're going into a drone and watching the fuel truck pull up anyway. You're just sitting in the cockpit. So this would actually kind of serve the purpose where you can see information on here like, hey, it's loading passengers, because it'll count the same way, but it just does it internally on its own. And then you're not dealing with anything breaking. So I'm not sure which way I'm going to go. But I'm definitely enjoying it. It was one of those, just given, the situation at this point, we're certainly being a little more careful with funds, and so,
Foxtrot Lima, remain at or below 5,000.
I was a little hesitant because this definitely was a nice to have. And so again, the weather and terrain, the first officer puts it on their screen. If you're doing something weird, I don't know if they scream out a warning or not, but they do have it set up on their screen. But obviously on your screen, you'd have to do it yourself if you wanted those things. But that's the kind of stuff that I'm not even sure I know how to do. I mean, I've done it through a list or watching a video at one point, but I don't remember the details. And usually in a 737, you're not really that worried about it, and you're going ahead and doing it. So we did pass a plane. I'm sure he was below us because it's a GA plane. So, but basically they're probably heading to Fort McKay. There's a Qatari flight ahead of us quite a ways. Kind of out in that direction is what I see on little nav map. And so we'll see what things look like when we get to Edmonton. But you can see we're going to have descent, approach, landing. And so the challenge with approach and landing is, yes, it does deal with flaps and all that. I am struggling with it. I feel like I'm coming in too quickly. So I'm trying to work things out. And the thing is, like, at one point it does give you the point where you can start adjusting the knob for the speed. So I am using that. It just feels like I'm not slowing down fast enough, and I'm constantly having to put the speed brake on. But it lowers the flaps later than I would like, but I'm sure it's probably more in protocol of when it really happens in real life, because it lets the plane come in faster for longer, and therefore obviously the flight is shorter. And so I'm sure it's configured to kind of standard operating procedures for most carriers. I'm just not flying at that level because it feels like we're slowing down far, far too late. Now, the thing was, when I was in Malaysia, I was landing on a 6,000 foot runway with a 737, which is a challenge in and of itself. So I'm sure that didn't help anything anyway. But at this point, like, say intentions has already given us the clearance, like, when we're ready. Or that they should be giving us something in about 10 minutes from, a while ago. But we're going to put this down here. Because, again, it doesn't do it. Now, there are commands for set altitude and things. I have not been able to get them to work yet. So, and rather than kind of create a disaster in an episode, I may play with those things offline, and if I get comfortable with them or find a way to get them to work. But it basically says, like, it notices it because it'll tell me on the interface set altitude, because it tells you say set altitude, pause, and then give the number, but on the screen it says 4 digits. So if I'm doing 16,000, which is what I was trying to do, how do I do that in 4 digits? I can do 1600, but then how does it know I want 16,000 and not 1600? Like, that's the confusing part. And I wasn't able to get it to do anything other than at least it showed that.
Top of descent.
So, and some of it maybe I've not tried the flight with my microphone on.
Spirit 792, expect direct waypoint Tango India Mike in 5 minutes.
So the way and so as you saw, like, we're within that descent distance, so it's starting to give us a warning. But so while the open mic is configured within FSFO, what I've done at the suggestion of some folks who also use say intentions and this, they said they've mapped the same key to push to talk in both systems, and that's what I've done. And what that does then is when I have the microphone on, when I'm talking to say intentions, FSFO wouldn't listen, and if I want to talk to FSFO, I wouldn't press anything because I'm on open mic, and it would hear me and I can issue commands. But like I said, I'm not able to do that. So if you go here and go to support, like, that, you've got all these voice commands, and there's a lot of them, but I haven't yet been able to do things. But you can see there was a thing about wipers. They're setting the squawk code. So I may try to get it a little bit more verbal. So at this point, again, he's going through things. He's setting the engine start switches. So again, he set them to continuous, which I should do, but haven't done. He's changing his nav display and range because we're getting
Descent
closer.
Checklist. Pressurization.
Set.
Recall.
Checked.
See, like, I don't even know what recall is. Okay, and so auto brakes,
Set.
once
Landing
we
data.
touch them,
1,
they're
2,
set.
3. Minimums. 2, 0, 0.
Approach briefing. We're expecting the ILS approach for runway 02. The minimum altitude is 200 feet. We'll use manual braking. We can expect to park at gate 1, 2. In case of go around, we'll climb per ATC instructions on the runway heading. Any questions?
No.
Completed.
Descent checklist completed.
All right. And so, again, you can see gate 1, 2. So it sometimes will assign a gate. So of the 3 flights, 2 of them have assigned me a gate. With say intentions, I was able to tell it I wanted a taxi to the gate, and it was a gate it knew about. So that is helpful as well, where sometimes I'm, getting information and like say intentions is like, I don't know what this gate is. So like pulling it off the charts. So this is nice and helpful. So looks like a bunch of, once again, GA type aircraft floating around Edmonton. I don't see any. The Qatari is gone by. I suppose it could be going by and turning around like we are to come into the runway. But we're nearly at top of descent. Edmonton Center, ready to descend, Arctic 1727. I should have called a little earlier.
Arctic 1727, descend via Resax 1 into Edmonton.
Descend via Resax 1 into Edmonton, Walker 4021. Probably didn't need the into Edmonton, but anyway.
From the flight deck, we've started our descent and expect to arrive to the gate in 20 to 25 minutes. It's been our pleasure having you on board with us today, and we look forward to seeing you again on a future flight.
So SFIT, it's supposed to be above 8,000. There it is. Mugvo above 7,000. So again, the super benefit of having, you know, Navigraph, things like that.
Maintain Mach 80. Maintaining Mach 80 United 938.
Alright, so, and it does never kind of get to 0, so it is kind of interesting, you know, but it is counting down the fuel. But you can see in theory 12 minutes. I don't know how accurate that is because again we're going by the airport. I can go down more, which I should go down more, so we're going to do flight level change, and now once it starts and I do this,
VNAV on.
so there you go. So for certain things, you'll hear your first officer note that. I'm going to go ahead and go down, you know, probably all the way, because it's just having me descend. I guess in theory, we're supposed to be at 5,000 at the lowest. So we'll do that. But yeah, it will set the approach, it will lower the gear, it will lower the flaps, but the challenge I have is the flaps seem to be lowering substantially later than I would be doing them, and it doesn't seem to slow you down in time, so there's definitely a bit of a conflict. Alright, so we've got Resax, and then we're going to have Rubsu, which is what's going to get us kind of near Edmonton. I think that's what's after Resax, so we'll see what happens. But we're coming in. But yeah, this is one of those, I think the video I saw from someone basically said it's, I think, the greatest add-on they've ever discovered, like, because it can do so much and has so much capability. And, you know, it's been out for a long time. I mean, that was their surprise. I think I've seen posts on their board. Right now they do a lot of things in Discord, but all the way back to like 2020. So it's been out for 5 or 6 years. And so that's the thing I've always enjoyed about Flight Sim, is there seems to always be something you don't know about that you discover that can just improve what you're doing so much more. So the only thing right now is, yes, this does seem to have some issues with 2024, and some of that is, again, just not being able to interact with the controls as cleanly as in 2020. So that, you know, keep that in mind if you're primarily flying in 2024 and you're not thrilled about going back to 2020. Your mileage may vary for a time until that moves.
Checked.
Okay. So it changed, and you can see it's 2977. It didn't go to 2992. Now, the last flight I had in Malaysia, I ended up changing the altitude. I forgot it was like 6,000.
220 knots for sequencing. Reducing to 220 knots, Virgin 875.
But, yeah, we're getting there. 33 miles, but once again, that's to the airport, and we're flying past it.
1727, descend altitude 5,000.
So right now, on my Navigraph charts, I'm not really there. I think
At
that's...
this time, we need all passengers in their seats with seatbelts fastened and seats in the full upright position. We'll be coming through the cabin shortly to collect all remaining trash.
Oh, I don't think I... Descend 5,000, Arctic 1727. Oh, now I'm
Arctic
supposed to contact...
1727, contact Edmonton Center on 134.9er.
Contact Edmonton Center 134.9er, Arctic 1727. I want to say Walker 4021, so bad. Edmonton Center, Arctic 1727 with you, 15,000, descending 5,000.
Arctic 1727, Edmonton Center identified. Good afternoon, Edmonton altimeter 29.77.
So, as it's set at this point, so doing really well again. Alright, so I'm finally coming on the screen, because yeah, I was just... Rubsu was there, so Rubsu was the holding pattern.
Arctic 1727, Edmonton Center,
to.
contact Edmonton approach on 120.5.
Contact Edmonton approach, walk, Arctic 1727. So there we go. I did it. I started to say Walker. Some crazy clouds. Edmonton approach, Arctic 1727 with you. And so yeah, we're kind of on the glide path, which is good.
Arctic 1727, Edmonton approach, identified. Good afternoon, Edmonton altimeter 29.77. Expect the ILS runway 2 approach into Edmonton via Bipna.
Expect runway ILS 2 approach into Edmonton via Bipna, Arctic 1727. Some very nice clouds. A lot going on, so a little bit, you know, the frame rate isn't great. Again, I'm on a 3 series card. I do not have a 4 series. I can't fit it in my computer. I'd have to buy a whole new setup. That's not likely to happen because I can fly pretty well, pretty much just fine, so I don't know that I see the reason for that. So not gonna do that because yeah, I can't really afford $3,000 or $4,000 for a computer with everything that it would need at this point. So very, very cloudy. Good news is outside the plane we can see, but you know, and again, it's saying remaining 1, but that's because it thinks I'm 10 minutes away, but
Tower 118.3, good night.
you know, we're not there yet.
Good night, Delta
At 10,000, like it's starting to slow. At 10,000, then it will start to reconfigure the switches. So they're going to start flipping lights on. So trying to kind of keep an eye on that, but
Dear passengers, we have reached an altitude that requires all electronics to be turned off and stowed for landing. You may continue to use your handheld
alright, so
phone
these are the
and
cabin
tablets in
messages.
airplane mode. Thank you.
And so yeah, I don't know if you caught in the settings, like you can have the cabin go to one sound source and...
The captain has turned on the seatbelt sign. In a moment, we will be coming through the cabin to collect your trash.
Okay, so a couple hundred feet away.
Arctic 1727, direct BIPNA. Cleared for the ILS runway 2 approach, BIPNA transition.
Cleared ILS runway 2, BIPNA transition. Arctic 1727. Okay, so...
Speed brake armed.
Alright, so it's telling me to watch the airspeed, but that's part of the challenge, so I'm going to try to avoid putting on the spring brake. Okay, so I assume that's because the glide slope is alive. I don't know why else it would say that, other than that's the case, but once again, it's because we're near the airport. You know, it's saying 0 remaining because we're less than 5 miles away, so it's straight out that way, but I don't know that we can really see it. Yeah, there it is. Oh, good. Thunder. Thunder and lightning. Fun stuff. But we're still descending. We're supposed to be above 8,000, where we had just passed. We're supposed to be above 7 at MoveGo. And then at BIPNA, yeah, we're supposed to be max 210 at MoveGo as well, which is 2 miles away. I don't know that we're going to be quite there. Looks like we're around 225, but... Alright. So, now again, we're trying to get down to 5, because that's where we're going to capture the ILS, I think. So if I go ILS 02, yeah, Hampo, which is one that we're going to turn in on, so I'm going to go ahead and change my own range here. So Hampo is where we'll be going. Let me just make sure that I don't have anything.
Approach mode on.
Okay. So it did that on its own. Not quite sure I would have done it in this direction yet, but it's okay. Alright, so now we are at the max 210 that we're supposed to be.
Biplane 69er Sierra Mike, maintain 4,000, expect vectors for the visual 24.
Maintaining 4,000, expecting vectors for the visual 2469er Sierra Mike.
Alright.
Land flight level 280 for Firefly 5885.
Now, we're still at 6,800 and we're at BIPNA. Now we're turning and we gotta be at 5,000 at Hampo. Not sure where at Obmox. I can't read it clearly. 3670. So got 5 miles to Hampo, so yeah, I should be able to drop 1,500 feet. I'm going to go ahead and get my landing monitor out here. So just going to move this a little bit. But we're at 3,500 feet. Yeah, see, I mean, we're coming in at a pretty steep angle. Alright, well, we're within 800 feet, but a little over 2 miles. So it's going to be close. I mean, we're getting there. Glide slope and all that's on.
Contact Edmonton Tower on 118.3.
Contact Tower 118.3, Arctic 1727. Edmonton Tower, Arctic 1727, runway 02.
Arctic 1727 Edmonton Tower, winds 305
So
at
there we
3,
go.
runway 2, cleared to land.
Flaps 1.
So now it did the flaps, flaps 1. Runway 02, cleared to land, Arctic 1727.
2500.
Now again, this may be better because I've got a little bit more going on, but like it won't turn off
Flaps
autopilot.
Flaps 5.
So this is working better than the last one did. So I will say I feel more comfortable with how this is working out. We're on the glide slope. We've grabbed the localizer. I've been getting this periodically, and I don't know if this has got something to do with this add-on. It freezes for a moment. It usually... Oh. Well, I've not had that happen before. So I don't know what crashed. It doesn't look like... Yeah, everything's running. The fuel's running. So I'm not sure. At least it wasn't... So yeah, I'll have to keep an eye on and take a look and see what happened. It may have been, say, intentions. I've had that happen with it recently. I've used it for the other 2 flights and not had a problem.
Gear down.
So now you can see there, the gear down happens.
Gear down.
Flaps 15.
Cabin crew, prepare for landing. Flaps 15.
See, it's just
Flaps 25.
a lot more immersive.
Skylane 422 Alpha Mike hold short of runway 27 traffic on final approach.
That, you know, we're able
Short of
to...
runway 27 Skylane 422 Alpha Mike.
Alright, so we're down. Now let's see, the speed is 120, no, 123, so I can be at 128, so we're gonna get this down quite a ways. And so this was the thing, like I didn't have time to slow down the way I was doing things before.
Flaps 30.
Alright.
1000.
Unstable.
Flaps 30.
Now, that's just because we're not meeting criteria, so it will be a reputation hit. Yeah, I'm pretty sure, since my guess is say intentions isn't going to say anything. So as we get to about a 450,
2.
it's going to, ooh, wow. I've not seen that kind of weather, and that was pretty impressive. But at 450, it'll disengage, or 500, it'll disengage the autopilot.
500.
Autopilot.
And then at 450, it'll...
Auto throttle.
At 450, it'll turn off the auto throttle, as you heard. And so at this point, I'm flying the plane, which is a good thing. Alright, so...
Minimums.
Now I'm too high in theory, so I'm not liking that. We're going to back off completely.
100. 50. 30. 20. 10.
That was actually pretty nice. Now normally it would say, oh, it does show a landing rate. Interesting.
70 knots.
Okay, it looks like we have to go to the left. So we will do that. Okay, so we're at 30. So at least we're in before the thunderstorm. Goodness. That was crazy.
Arctic 1727, welcome to Edmonton.
Oh.
Contact ground on 121.7.
Something else is giving me a problem, so I'm not going to say quit, because that would be bad. And so now it's doing things, as you can see. So he's going to go through.
Welcome to our destination airport. Please remain seated until all docking procedures are completed and the fasten seatbelt sign is turned off. On behalf of
Edmonton ground, Arctic 1727, request taxi to gate 12. So, setting nav display. I don't know what it's doing with the clock.
Arctic 1727, taxi to gate 12 via Bravo 1, Bravo Victor. Good day.
Taxi to gate 12 via Bravo 1, Bravo Victor. Arctic 1727. Okay, I don't remember if I put on my... I did not put my parking brake on. Alright, so it's got the after landing. Alright, we're going to back this off a bit. I mean, we want to move, but we don't want to be too crazy. So yeah, it's nice in that it gives you a gate. You know, we'll see, like with FSLTL running, or maybe that's what crashed. I don't know. I don't have anything up with little nav maps, so I don't see that right now. But alright, we're turned. But, oh man, I'm going way too fast. I'm at 40, for goodness sakes. Am I crazy? There's a lot. Alright, we don't have to cross any kind of runway. There is another runway. Perpendicular runway, so... I'm just worried. We're getting...
Watch the ground speed.
So there we go. I just wanted to show you that. I'm kidding. That was unplanned. I mean, I knew it was coming, but so you can set that appropriately. And so yeah, what I may do is I may use self-loading cargo and just not use GSX, because there is a pushback here that you can use that like will give you directions and whatever. So it's got like a built-in pushback, which is, again, so you can get add-ons with pushback for some things, but you know, why if you don't need it? So, and if you can get things consolidated into a few tools, so like I said, there's a lot of nice things, and I know the people that have been doing the videos about GSX are like, we need a GSX competitor and alternative. Like, is this it? Not really, because like I can't, I mean, yeah, I can manually do pushback, but I can't like set up pushback routes like I can in GSX, like I did for O'Hare. I did have somebody comment like 6 months ago about a problem, so I did acknowledge, ooh, I just saw it now. Alright, so I assume this is Bravo 1 now, and then we have to go Bravo 1 Victor, whatever that is. So we'll see if we get to a gate, because maybe we'll get a jetway, but yeah, I'm thinking we're going where this Air Canada is. We absolutely are, so that's the thing. It's not FSLTL, or this plane wouldn't be here. So and again, it won't like make it go away, which kind of sucks, but I don't want to do quit. Am I? Alright, I am there. Alright, and then I have to turn the taxi light off manually, and that will now start the shutdown flow. So that basically is my control and indicator as a pilot. And so you'll see now it's going to wait for APU transfer. So you know, because it did start that up when we got off the runway, so that's the thing you didn't see. But now it's setting the engine switches.
762 Foxtrot Romeo, hold short of runway 24, traffic on final approach.
Hydraulic pumps.
Holding short of runway 24, Falcon 762 Foxtrot Romeo.
So there we go. Connecting
Niner
to the
28, Edmonton
jetway.
ground pushback and engine start approved. Face southwest.
Oh, why isn't it working? Oh, there we go. I'm like, why isn't it working?
Canada Heavy X75, we're ready for push and start. I'd like the nose speed.
Air Canada
And
X-ray
again,
75, Edmonton ground,
it's
push and
nice
start approved.
with
Face north.
GSX this way, because without it, like, we wouldn't have it. Wow, that is so cool. I've not had the weather yet like that, so that is really neat. Okay. So we're here. It's telling me in Pilot's Life, remember to submit the flight. So we're going to do that. Because I assume I can. Alright. And then I assume we'll have the next flight available. Oh, great. It's a Pilot's Life that has the problem. That's not good. Oh, please don't tell me. Oh my gosh. Oh no, it's in the logbook. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, do I have to fly it again? No, no, no. Okay, I don't. Thank God. So yeah, something was going on with it. So, and I'm hoping it's not a conflict. It's the best score I've had. I've got an 80. Well, I've got 80. Oh, I actually got 100. It is the best score I've had. Quite nice, but that's probably because I did everything, because it flipped all my switches. Like, the lights are on, yes, I passed. The landing rate was good. Landing G-force. Like, yeah, I did everything perfectly. So, yeah, that's something to look at, I guess. Never achieved that, but yet another reason. So now doors.
Shutdown checklist.
And so now passengers.
Off.
See, so it's deboarding.
Off.
But I don't know that
Hydraulic
it's
pumps.
using GSX to deboard.
Sit. Flaps. Up. Parking brake. On. Fuel control switches. Off.
But yeah,
Weather
engines
radar.
are off. It's got the one fuel pump for the APU on.
Off. Shutdown checklist completed.
Right. And so here, this is an FSFO. And so again, I failed on the taxi speed because I went a little quick. And then approach stability was the one thing that I said it's going to talk about. So if I upload that, and then the ACARS report, you know, gives you all this information. So you can see everything that happened when, and all that. So there is that information, and again, I have one pilot reputation. I think that has something to do with the career mode. And then if you want, you can secure the plane. Like if it's done for the day, then you'll really shut everything down, where right now you're kind of set for turnaround. So let me see. If, like, is GSX... Okay, no, it's deboarding. So it is using GSX deboarding. I'm just not seeing the pop-up that I would expect. There we go. Finally I am. Because, yeah, when it's a jetway, you can't really see it.
Taxiway Delta, traffic on final approach.
And they're taking off
Holding short of taxiway Delta Airbus 450 Alpha Bravo.
the passage there. All right,
Skyhawk 260, you are on ground.
So we're going to close that. And like I said, so let me see. Yeah, FSLTL says it's still running. Which, yeah, we've got a few planes around. We don't have anything massive here. You'd think in Edmonton there'd be a little bit more. But for whatever reason there is not. So we're going to end that. So that will take all the planes away. So now they're all gone. Yeah, this is like the one gate that has a jetway. I'm glad it put us here, but it might because it's the only one it knows what to do with. Now, I'm surprised it didn't theoretically do the do those, the secure flow and all that. Or I'm sorry, the approach checklist and the landing checklist. Yeah, so yeah, I'm just looking at my job market tab. Oh, we have Bahamas Air wants us. Wouldn't that be nice? At this point, you know, first I was like, I don't know that I want to fly in like the Caribbean or something, but so right now I have offers from Air Corsica, Bahamas Air, Bluebird Cargo, Transavia France, and something called Airwork. And so Airwork is the highest salary. And yeah, days since last contract start, we're up to 249. So we've been doing these for a bit. But yeah, my intent is hopefully to do these quicker at this point. Alright, GSX deboarding complete. We've got baggage unloading still going on. So at this point we'll finish out just so but I don't think it'll do the secure flow on its own. It's interesting that it's saying taxi in, and maybe because technically we're not done loading yet. I'm not quite sure. You know, and so part of what you do with FSFO is kind of adjust it and figure out what works for you. But like I said, the nice thing versus what I'm hearing from folks with GSX is the developer, you know, certainly is responsive. So I know yesterday the problem I was having is when you had those countdown times, like say he was doing the walk around, or you know, it was really like loading the flight plan, it would skip those. It would just, they'd pop up and it would then go, and then so everything wasn't really working. And so that's where he taught me about the LVARs and look for that, where he says, well, maybe you're starting it up a little too fast. Because I thought, like, there's an FSU IPC banner that pops up in the middle of Microsoft Flight Simulator loading. I thought that was the load, and it, I guess, is not. Alright, so these guys are now parked. And so at this point, I'm sure GSX is like, I'm ready to board if you want. Yep, you can request catering and just turn around and do another flight, which is something this would do. But at this point, you know, we're done, so we're going to disconnect and exit. I don't know why it's requesting catering service, but let me know what you think of Flight Simulator First Officer. Do you like it? Did you enjoy the flight with it? You know, other things maybe you'd want to see. I mean, I'm willing to try it different ways, because I honestly don't know which way I would like it. I certainly enjoyed it the way it worked. And I will say, the way this lined up and I had room, like, I felt it worked well. And I had something similar the first flight, but the second flight, it was an RNAV approach. It wasn't an ILS, so I think we just simply weren't far enough from the airport, the way, say, intentions vectored us in. And again, I'm sure part of it was, it's like, hey, you're coming into a 6,000 foot runway, like, you must be able to be pretty agile, even though it should have known I was a 737-800, but either way, but let me know whatever you want to let me know about it. And, you know, if you're a user of it, you've got ideas or suggestions that have worked for you that maybe I should take a look at, always open to that. And more importantly, if you've never heard of it, certainly let me know that. I think this is one of those that has flown under the radar, but it is actually a pretty nice product. I've enjoyed my experience with it so far, and it's worked relatively flawlessly. I mean, yes, I've had to make some adjustments, and, you know, I might need to do some other things, but like I said, what I may try next time is do self-loading cargo and not do GSX, and that might change how everything else works too, and then that might give me a better flow, because as I said, while it's interesting to watch the bags being unloaded and whatever, it's not something that you'd be doing as a pilot. You're sitting in the cockpit. You wouldn't have that view out there and so forth. So, as always, the only request I have from everyone is if you have not liked or subscribed, please consider those things, and I will see you next time.